From the Ticats Audio Network, this is Tiger Cats Game Day with Courtney Stephen and Mike Daly.
Welcome back to the first 2023 edition of Tiger Cats Game Day on the Ticats Audio Network. Of course, if you listened to us before, you know me. I'm your man, Courtney Stephen, and joined, as always, I'm honored to be here with the Mike Daly. And Mike, it's been a long off season, but we're finally here, man.
Finally here, 2023, man. I missed everybody. I missed everyone getting the best show out there for your Ticats Game Day. It's good to be back, Court. Good to see you. Good to start talking about some Ticats football, man, because this is an exciting year.
Absolutely, and I don't know a year that's had this much anticipation building behind it in recent memory, but you know, much has been made of the roster that's been put together, and for the first time, we will get to see all of these guys strap it up and put it together. Now, we might not get to see everybody for a full, well, I know as a fact we won't get to see everybody for a full game, but nonetheless, the anticipation of just that group taking the field, it's something that we've all been waiting to see, and it will be an exciting game at 4 o'clock when they kick it off against the Argos. So in a preseason game like this, Mike, what are really the coaches trying to accomplish? What are the players trying to accomplish? What is the significance of this game?
Yeah, these preseason games, I mean, you know, it's always nice to get a win under your belt and that kind of stuff, right? Like we always talk about in regular season, but this is more of a competition internally, right? It's okay, who are we going to be going to battle with week one? It's really just an evaluation game, right? It's an evaluation of your own team. Yes, it's against the Argos. Yes, we want to beat the Argos every chance we get. But what it is it's Coach O and staff looking at their roster, who's going to step in, who's going to be the ones making plays, how is this going to shake out. That's what these preseason games are about. So like you said, we're going to, see some people a little bit more, and really the big name guys that you're looking for probably a little bit less in this game because, if we know that they're starting, we know that they're going to be out there week one. Well, let's leave the evaluation for the other guys. So the cool part about these is you get to see that whole roster, and you get to see how deep this roster is because you're going to be able to see these guys compete. So that's what this preseason's about. It's about keeping, the guys that are going to be playing week one healthy and then being able to evaluate that other part of that roster.
And, staying healthy is half of the battle in the CFL. Last year there was some early woes in certain position groups. Some players that were stars were relegated to the sideline as only fans for half of the season, and a lot of that weighed into the outcome that the Ticats inevitably saw for themselves. So getting out of this game ready for the ones that count towards the win-loss column for real would be one of the main objectives. I know Coach O in a recent interview on Ticats Today, he did mention that, you want to test guys out and you want to see what they have for you this season, but not to the point of being reckless. So with that kind of comment, I'm not expecting to see both throw for 300. I'm not expecting to see Tim White go for 3 touchdowns or anything like that. But it would be nice to even get a glimpse of the timing, the poise, the presence of those veterans playing together, because there is a certain level of chemistry that has to be developed on a new team with new guys playing together, rhythm, confidence, and just trust. So from an offensive line to the quarterbacks to the receivers to defense, who really needs the preseason the most?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, Cor, let me spin it back on you for a sec because, you've been through enough of these preseason games to be able to know. When it comes down to this, and you're kind of that veteran, right? You talk about the Bo Levis, the Simone Lawrences, the Jameer Thurmans that are brought over. How much do you need as one of these vets in this preseason game? Because you're asking, what do you want to see out of this? Well, really, as a player, what do you want to get out of this as a preseason game?
I think there's phases and stages, right? If you're early in your career, you're licking your chops. I remember a young Neil King, who was a roommate of mine in my rookie season in 2013. We traveled to Montreal, and in that preseason game, Kinger had 5 special teams tackles, and he was going all out. That was his Grey Cup, because we were essentially trying to make a name, make the club, earn a spot on that active roster. And for a guy like that who's doesn't really have any resume to speak of, the preseason game will mean a lot. So for these draft picks, for these guys who are not normal rotation guys, I would expect them to be going on all special teams and getting reps on offense or defense if possible. And when their number's called, you better believe they're not tapping out or asking for a water break. But on the flip side, a veteran guy, I know myself in the back half of my career, you could give me half of the first quarter and I'm good, because I just really want to put on my nice outfit and just get the feeling of having those pads on again. Maybe put them on 1 or 2 guys just to see how it feels. But it's like riding a bike, man. You've been playing this game at this point for 10, 15, 20 years for some guys since they were young. So you don't really need a whole lot of action, especially in a super long CFL season that is 23 weeks if you do it right. 2 in the pre, 3 in the post, 18 in between. That is a marathon, and you got to stay healthy, so you really don't need a ton of reps. But I'd ask you, do you feel the same, or were you a guy who wanted to get more of a tune-up in the preseason?
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same boat as you. The main thing for me is, nowadays in the training camp, it's a lot of running around, it's a lot of tear and toll on your legs, that kind of stuff, but there's no real hitting, there's no real tackling, there's no real getting hit, there's no going to the ground. Everything is, let's stay injury free to get to the week 1, right? So these preseason games for me, in my mind, were, okay, I need to get back to hitting somebody, because I've been training, lifting weights, running around, but I'm not asking my training partners to go out there and let me hit them. You know what I mean? Anybody would be crazy to do that. So this is that time for, like you said, put some pads on some people. And for those guys trying to make the team, this is huge, right? These might be the only offensive or defensive or special teams reps they get this year. So to be able to take advantage of those while all the vets are sitting back, sitting on the benches with the hats on, helmet nowhere in sight because they're just watching these young guys go. That's their chance. So that's what I'm looking forward to, right? Is those, kind of the second, third, fourth string guys flying around out there trying to make a name for themselves.
Yes, and Ticats fans, if you have not got your tickets to come out to Tim Hortons Field and watch the action live, as always, we've got your back on the Ticats audio network. But for the first time ever, the CFL will be broadcasting the non-televised games, as this one is, online at CFL Preseason Live. That's www.cfl.ca/preseason live, and you can stream the game online. All you have to do is sign up with your email, create a password, and log into that thing, and you can watch your boys in black and gold tear up some double blue on a Saturday afternoon. And this is something I actually think is great for the league, because internationally, folks, all year long, no matter where you are outside of Canada, you're going to be able to tune in and watch CFL with a lot of global guys, with a lot of American guys. It's going to be great for their families to be able to tune in and watch some CFL football. So that's a big plus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to grow the game, right? And I already did it for the first preseason game with Edmonton there. I was looking around, I was like, I know it's on, I got to find it. Couldn't find it on TV, logged on to CFL.ca, got on there, watched the game. Yeah, it's great, right? It's a great way to grow the game, especially with some of those new leagues popping up down south. It's a great way to keep the CFL top of mind, right? Got to.
And for our second game on Friday, June 2nd, that will also be on CFL Preseason Live. But when the folks tune in tomorrow, or when the folks tune in today, not next week, not any other time, when they come out this afternoon, or they listen in, or they tune in, what should they be looking for? There's going to be some new faces, some old faces, but a lot of guys, this may actually be their last time wearing a helmet and shoulder pads, because, you make it to the pros and you're really trying to keep that dream alive. Some of these guys are going to lay it all on the line for the last time. You talked about hitting in practice. It reminds me of an old friend, Jamal Roll, who never took a day off. He recently retired, and there's some vacancies in that back end for the secondary. I'm looking at the competitions around training camp and whatnot, whether it be the DB competition, the receiver room, the new running backs, what are you looking at in this game? Where will your ISO cam be during the action?
You know what? So, Court, great point, right? You bring up Jamal Roll. That boundary corner spot that Jamal had played and that Delvin Breaux had played before is such a key and vital spot on the CFL defense, on every single defense that you can come across, because that's the spot that you're going to get those ISO routes. That's the spot that the other team's main receiver is going to show up at. And so what I'm interested to see is that competition, right? Who's going to win that competition for that boundary corner spot? Who's going to be able to take that over and really be able to be that guy that Mark Washington relies on to lock down that main receiver, right? Jamal Roll before, Delvin Breaux, all huge players being able to help out that Ticat defense, and that's really what makes it go. Because if we're going to go, a little bit deep into football here, when they move all those receivers over to the field side, make 4 receivers over on the field side and put 1 back on that boundary side, well, that corner is out there alone, a lot of space around there. It is a very lonely place to be, so it'll be interesting to see who wins that battle. But what are you looking forward to in this game? What do you want to see?
Well, I'm right there with you, along with a couple of other things. Kenneth George Jr. is getting the start at that boundary corner position, and he is a CFL rookie, a guy out of a small school, Prairie View A&M. So he's going to have a chip on his shoulder and just ready to compete, and that's what you want to see in the boundary. A guy who maybe has a little bit to prove, because you're going to go up against the opponent's best receiver every play of the game, and those are huge shoes to fill. Not only Jamal Rolls, but the Bro Show, people still talk about him, and he's been out of black and gold for a long time. And,
right.
And he's going to be going head-to-head with Will Sunderland, and he's a big corner. That's a big guy, 6'2". He's got long, rangy, and he's making plays in practice right now. He's got some ball skills, but he's physical as well, and he can move, and that's what you want to see. So with the vacancies that were created by, Cariel Brooks and Jamal Roll leaving that boundary, there was a lot of question marks entering the offseason. They bring in some new blood on some free agencies, and then they also bring in some of these rookies who weren't even in the CFL. And I think there's going to be an interesting battle going on there, but you also know you got to have depth. And then you go over to the field side, and the returner, Lawrence Woods III, seeing him get some actual DB action as opposed to just being the specialist that he's made a name for himself as. I think that will be an interesting thing to watch, knowing that as a defensive player, he can make plays, not just as a special teamer. That's another dimension for you right there, because then you're carrying the same amount of people on your roster with more flexibility, and that's something that Mark Washington has got to love from those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. To be able to see Lawrence Woods take that next step and not just be that dynamic returner that he was, and be able to get out there as a corner, you're right. It just opens up that roster flexibility, which then you can bring in whatever you need for that game, right? If you're down a little bit, if the receivers are a little bit banged up, well, you can add in that extra receiver instead of addressing just that single returner to do one thing. So it'll be interesting to see how Lawrence Woods picks that up with Richard Leonard out there being able to help him, being that veteran. That'll be a good thing for him. One thing that I'm very interested in seeing in Court, I want to get your take on this. If you line up against a receiver that is 6'6" in Justin McGriff, who's now starting out at that X spot, so that boundary side receiver where I said they put that best receiver to win the 50-50 balls. We saw that last year with Stephen Dunbar. You line up out there, and there is a 6'6" receiver across from you. What's going on in your head? I better grow?
I don't know how fast I could get that done in that 20-second play clock, but the defenses are going to be challenged because he's not just a branch. He could get out there and move as well. So they're definitely going to create plays in this playbook that suit that skill set, things that are going to leave the ball hanging up in the air for him to go and get it and play to those advantages, because you're not going to usually see corners who are much taller than 6'1", and there's going to be a natural advantage there. So, Tommy Condell, he likes to get the ball spread to all of his weapons, and across the board, you've got big Justin McGriff right next to speedy Tim White, and then on the opposite side, you got the emerging Keandre Smith, who's a fiery playmaker, who's got his explosive potential there anytime he touches the ball, and I think he's really on the verge of coming into his own. Huge play, Duke Williams in the slot, which is going to cause massive problems for field halves if that's where he ends up playing. But I know that these receivers will shuffle around, and this alignment is just where they're going to begin on the depth chart. But you can expect to see Duke in a number of positions because of the versatility he brings as a taller, bigger, physical, also good at getting those deep balls and those contested 50-50 balls. And then you got Richie Sindani playing in that 3 spot there, where Luke Tasker used to make his money. And I think really he's a sure-handed guy coming from Calgary. He's going to have a little bit of chemistry with Bo already out of the gate. So there's weapons everywhere. And the thing is, when you have a guy like McGriff who's going to draw attention, or you have a guy like Tim White who's going to take the top off, having other folks who are reliable is the key to sustaining an offense. This Ticats offense last year, one of their Achilles heel was, getting the ball in the end zone when they were in striking range instead of settling for a lot of field goals, and then also converting second downs and extending drives. They put up a lot of yards. They had a lot of big plays, but it was the consistent driving of the ball and then finishing. And I think when you have the combination of a lot of reliable guys, mostly veterans in this receiving core, which is a big change from years past, and then you have some home run hitters too, I think that's a great formula to actually flip that script completely and see a lot better conversion rate on second down and a lot more threats in the red zone.
Yeah, absolutely. When you start looking at the size of the receivers, the difference that the Ticats have had in the past and now, the wingspans of these taller receivers help for those second and mediums, those second and longs to be able, or even in that red zone, right? It's almost like a box out in basketball. All they really need to do is to get to one side. You don't have to completely beat the defender and get wide open to make these catches. You get to one side, Bo throws that thing just over to the other side. That defender can't get around it without either taking a flag or being just not even being able to touch the ball, right? Those type of guys, they're hard to defend because they can be covered and still make those catches. So I'm looking forward to that. And one thing, Court, and what the CFL tells us every single year is that you need to be 2 quarterbacks deep, right? Sometimes 3 for some teams. And these preseason games, as much as everybody's looking at Bo Levi Mitchell to make his hay in Hamilton, well, guess what? Matthew Schiltz, this is his time to shine. Right? This is the preseason game where he's going to be able to get the maximum amount of reps before the season happens. Because guess what? Once week 1 happens, Bo Levi is going to be behind center taking those snaps, and Schiltz is only getting reps in practice. So this is where he's going to have to make his hay, really be able to, develop his offensive feel for the next year. And if something ends up happening with Bo down the road, whether, and cross our fingers it doesn't, but from what we've seen, it does, and for Schiltz to be able to get those reps under his belt for this game is going to be huge.
So let's just talk about this a little bit more for a second. The Ticats have made comment about this, the coaching staff, the personnel department. They've spoken about the fact that they wanted to pay up for a more veteran quarterback at that second position because the contingency plan in the fact that, who knows, maybe Bo has to blow his nose and he's off the field for a play. They don't want the entire integrity of the offense to fall apart because everything's riding on one guy. Matt Schiltz is going into his 6th CFL season this year, and that type of experience pays dividends when you actually get into the game and it's not just adjusting to the bright lights. It's, I've been here before, I've played, and I've won games, and I know what to do in a pro offense. So how does that change the confidence that this team has as a receiving group, or even as an offensive line, or even as the coaches when Matt Schiltz gets in the game? Do you think that anything changes with the playbook, or does his skill set allow you to really execute as planned going into a game?
Yeah, I think, you kind of hit the nail on the head. It doesn't change anything for the receivers, for the offensive line, because what Tommy Condell can do with a veteran quarterback behind Bo, right, with Matthew Schiltz having to go in, is he can run the exact same offense. So everything that you had planned for that week, and day 1 worked on, and day 2 worked on, the receivers getting their timing right with Bo, and then something happens during the game. Well, you don't need to now throw out all those plays that you worked on all week. right? So the receivers are still more confident because they're still just running the same things that they were running in day 1, 2, and 3, right? All it is just a different guy back there throwing the ball. The only thing that I could see and I kind of hope for is the success that Matthew Schiltz had running the ball with some of the packages that Tommy Condell brought in, where he was getting in there doing kind of the read option type stuff. I would like to see that come back out. Now, you won't see that in preseason because all these coaches, right, they're holding all their cards close to their chest. They're not going to show you anything cool yet. But maybe in week 1, all of a sudden, Matthew Schiltz in the second quarter is out there taking a couple snaps and running some of those smoke and mirrors, misdirection type runs. And that's what I'm really hoping for, that continues, because, Court, from what you remember last season, that was a big spark to that offense when that started happening.
Totally. And sparks is what it's all about. There's a lot of guys who can spark things up. Special teams, defense, offense. Sometimes you just need one person to make a big block or a big catch, and that is contagious. That type of playmaking goes through the team. Who are some other guys who might be a little bit under the radar, or guys who aren't the headliners who you're looking at in this game and just in the preseason in general?
Yeah, I think the first one that you see is Jameer Thurman, right? Big acquisition in free agency. He had always played Will, so the weak side linebacker, right? Well, in Hamilton, Simone Lawrence plays Will, right? And that's 21 spot. So what do they do with Jameer Thurman? Knowing he's a veteran, knowing that he knows the defense, knowing that he knows the CFL game, well, he's going to move into the Mike linebacker, right? And listen, it's not that the Will linebacker, so the weak side linebacker, is much different than the Mike linebacker or the middle linebacker. It's not that it's much different, but there are subtleties.
Absolutely.
Right? There are subtleties that you've got to now learn and reset your brain. It's almost like Bo having to come in and learn a new offense, right? Or it's like Duke Williams having to come in and learn a new offense. There are these subtleties, so I'm very interested to see how Jameer Thurman picks that up. And obviously he's a veteran, he's going to figure it out, but that's a little bit of a step that I don't think people are looking at.
Okay, so Mike, for the uninitiated, can we break down the slight nuance between the Will and the Mike? So from my perspective, when I'm lined up at the free safety, I'm directly behind both of these gentlemen. And the Mike linebacker is more like the free safety of the front. He's going to be calling the alignment. He's going to be bumping the line left and right and calling the fronts. When they move, he's telling them when to move, and he's quarterbacking that front four in the pass rush and in the run game. Whereas the Will, I don't want to say is more of an athlete, but is more of a cover / run support / I'm going to play all the short zones kind of person, whereas the middle linebacker is a tackle machine. How would you describe the difference between the two, and what have I missed, if anything, in this description?
Yeah, and I got a good one for this. Is think of a mosh pit. All right.
Are we talking rock concert, or are we talking disco tech music?
Think of a mosh pit where...
What is disco tech? Techno. Are we talking a techno mosh pit, or are we talking...
We're talking rock. We're talking rock mosh pit because it's a little bit messy. So the middle linebacker in a mosh pit is right in the middle of that thing. He's getting bounced around by all the big guys, the offensive lineman, the defensive lineman. He's just a little dude trying to play in the big game. You know what I mean? He's trying to get in there, throw his elbows around in that mosh pit. The Will linebacker is like, yeah, I'm all right with this mosh pit, but I'm going to stay at arm's reach of this mosh pit. You know what I mean? I'll come in there and I'll maybe high five a couple people or push one guy, but I'm going to sit out here and see what's going on and be able to get both ways. If I want to get into that mosh pit, I can. If I want to stay out and just look from a distance like the DBs do, then I'll do that. So Jameer Thurman now moving into that mosh pit. Everybody's going to start thinking during this game, he's in there, right? So it's that's how I would describe it. And
how many heavy metal concerts?
Good luck to Jameer.
How many heavy metal concerts have you been to?
A few, but not to get in the mosh pit. That's why I stay back there at free safety.
I feel you. You're even one step further removed. Okay, so we can expect to see Simone Lawrence ducking and dodging those big offensive linemen in space, whereas Jameer Thurman is taking them on hat in hands and shedding blocks in the mosh pit. You heard it here first, folks. Okay, so that's a good look at the guys in the middle. We talked about the back end. Obviously, the defensive line has been a huge anchor for this team in the past. and you've got guys like Ted Laurent coming back for his 25th season. Malik Carney, I want to say a rising star in that Ticats defense. You're going to have people all over the place making plays. I think the preseason is where you find out who is the person that you are overlooking, because these are all names that we're familiar with, but there's going to be somebody who comes out shining their own light and really making some noise. I'm very excited to see who that is and who is the person who's going to reveal themselves as the next great potential Ticat, because that's really what this is about. It's about opportunities. It's about competition across the line and competition with the person who's next to you, because at the end of the day, these guys are trying to earn a spot. And it's one fantastic voyage on the road to this CFL Grey Cup that is happening right here in Hamilton. So do you have any words of advice that you would give to the guys who are going to strap it up not too long here later today?
Yeah, really, this is your resume builder. You hear it all the time with the players, right? Or in the coaching room, we call these games a resume builder. So you had mentioned that, okay, maybe it might be somebody's last time strapping up the pads. Well, what this is it's trying out for the Hamilton Tiger Cats this game, yes. But what it also is trying out for all the other CFL teams that might want to pick you up if the Hamilton Tiger Cats don't think you fit their team, right? And vice versa. For every other team and every other player out there, the Hamilton Tiger Cats are looking at these guys as well, right? Everyone's trying to put these pieces together to get their team to where they need to be for the Grey Cup, right? It's a very long process. Like you said, it's a journey. So really what this is just make sure that when these guys are out there strapping it up, that they're playing hard to every whistle, that they're putting their best out there and, really trying to make the team and make a name for themselves. The one thing that actually stood out to me, trying to make the team, trying to make a name for yourself, and not saying this guy's at risk of getting cut because he was a great special teams player, but one thing I want to draw attention to is Bailey Feltmate. So if we remember Bailey Feltmate, he was a linebacker last season. Well, he's now playing fullback, right? So what they're trying to do right now is Felix is in there playing fullback. He's going to come out there as that starting fullback, right? But what Bailey's doing is, and I'm sure it was a conversation with Coach O saying, hey, Bailey, we need some help at fullback. How about you come on in, replace the likes of Jake Burt, try to end up coming in and being able to contribute on offense, because probably not enough room on defense for you there as a Canadian linebacker with those two American guys in there. So Bailey Feltmate making the switch over, as well as Miles Manalo, two linebackers making the switch over to fullback to try to at least cement themselves into Tommy Condell's offense. And Court, we talk about moving from a weak side linebacker to a middle linebacker. Try switching sides of the ball in professional football.
Well, I will say this. First of all, if you look at the depth chart, between Mike and Will, you have 10 athletes at these two spots, the deepest positions. And for a lot of teams, it's going to be structured this way because those are your anchors of special teams. They got to run down on punt. They got to run down on kickoff. They got to block. They got to do all those things. But there have been cases of folks who have made this exact jump, and I think back to one Carl Olivier Prime, a.k.a. CO Prime, who made the move from linebacker to fullback and had a good career with the Tiger Cats. And he became somebody that they relied on in those two-back sets to come move those defensive ends out of the box or lead up through the middle and go find those linebackers at the second level. And even once in a while, they snuck him out in the flat and threw him a bone. And so if you're able to do what the coach asks you to do within the scheme, I think they see something there, right? They see the potential for his frame, his body type, his athleticism to contribute. And they're not saying we don't want you. We're saying we have bigger plans for you than sitting buried behind 10 other guys. And so I take it as a compliment. And I think, just knowing him myself, he's the type of guy who took that with a smile, because what you're telling me is I got an opportunity to try and get on the field and play football more. I'm going to take it. Every single time I will take it.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's be honest too, the skill set of a linebacker and a fullback are pretty similar, right? Get in there, Hey, if we want to use that mosh pit reference again, they're both right in there. So I think, yeah, exactly, body movers. So I think that was an interesting thing to me. But you're absolutely right. Bailey would have been one of those guys with a smile on his face saying, "Yeah, let's do it. I'm all in."
And let's do it. We will. 4 p.m. Eastern at the Donut Box, Tim Hortons Field. The Hamilton Tiger Cats are going to kick it off against the boys in blue, the Toronto Argonauts, for the first preseason game of this 2023 Hamilton Tiger Cat season. If you're not going to be there, of course, catch us on the Ticats audio network. That's ticats.ca. Or if you want to tune in to the brand new CFL preseason live, you can do that at cfl.ca/preseason live. Whatever you do, don't miss this game and don't miss us all season. Tiger Cats Game Day will be here every morning to make sure you know exactly what to look for when you turn on that Ticats football. So for Mike Daly, this is Courtney Stephen. We will see you when we see you.
It's game day and you're ready. So are we. Let us know your thoughts. Email us at gameday@ticats.ca. Courtney Stephen and Mike Daly are here every game day with their insights into today's game. Subscribe to the Ticats Audio Network on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.